Welcome once again to the Irish NFL podcast, brought to you in association with Titan Roofing. Once again, I'm Mark Cockrell, a depressed Patriots fan, it must be, with a putrid performance this week in week 6 of the NFL. But I'm joined, as always, by my good friends, Gordon Bridgefield, a dichotomically split Steelers/Browns fan. But happy for the Steelers side this week, Gordo?
Delighted for the Steelers fan. I watched this game in full, so it was a nice Sunday afternoon.
Good stuff. And deliriously delighted Brian O'Leary, whose Giants have not only come away with a win this week, but they're half a game outside the division lead. Oh, my God, Brian.
I know, Mark. I can't believe it. We actually won a game. It's 2 years since we won a game, and the Patriots lost in the same weekend. Week 14 of the 2018 season. I had to go and look that up for you.
It's almost like you were waiting for this for so long. So we don't want to demean your opportunity in this regard. But you did win a game. It was against Washington. I did check. That does still count as an actual win. It's not like you beat the Jets or something putrid like that. But certainly an entertaining game for you. Lots of entertaining games. It's funny. This was really week 6, where I started off as an NFL fan thinking, there's some games I'm really looking forward to. Steelers, Browns, you know what? That's going to be a ding-dong game. That's going to be interesting. Complete blowout. Pack, which we'll get onto as well, unfortunately follow the same theme. But some of the games we'll get to in due course probably weren't the most exciting on paper beforehand, but ended up being great entertainment this weekend.
The games in which we kind of preview and thought would be really the most spectacle games to watch this weekend actually turned out to be kind of a bit of a blowout. The Buccaneers, we felt the Buccaneers versus the Packers would be the game of the weekend, and everybody was looking forward to it and expected a back and forth game between Brady and Rodgers, with a high scoring game, but it didn't turn out that way. Bit of an unusual game in many ways, because the Packers started out so well. They were 10-0 up. They got the ball back. The Buccaneers hadn't done much, and it seemed like it was only going one way, which was that the Packers may be the team to blow out the Bucs. And then all of a sudden, Rodgers, which I think is a rarity, I think he's only thrown 3 pick sixes in his entire career, gave one away, which seemed like a very loose pass for Rodgers to do, and put the Bucs back in the game. And then literally on the next drive, I think it was the second play, he threw another interception, which was nearly returned for a pick six. It might as well have been, because it was brought back to the 1 yard line. And then the Bucs punched it in. And then from there on, it was just completely dominant. For the end of that quarter, the Packers, they just couldn't move the ball, and the Buccaneers defense, which has really improved under Bowles over the past 2 years, just stepped up their game, and a very easy, comfortable win for the Buccaneers in the end.
So 38 unanswered points by the Bucs, as you say, 10-0 down, then 38 unanswered, and probably Rodgers was lucky not to have another couple of picks. He really got shaken up, it would seem, after those first 2 interceptions and a few other near misses. But, Gordo, obviously you're a big fan of Aaron Rodgers and everything. I mean, what did you make of the game and the performance there?
Yeah, it was a strange one, because again, I had a big accumulator on the weekend, and this was one of those ones where we thought, yeah, it might be close, but it was pretty much a banker. Myself and Brian were texting saying it's pretty safe, and it just went downhill very quickly. I think one of the biggest things was just the Buccaneers' defense, and your man Devin White is one of the greatest tacklers I've seen this season. He just go on, Mark.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. He's just one of those sort of tacklers that he hit everything all game, and he didn't miss a single one. And it was just one of those kind of defensive performances where Aaron Rodgers got roughed up, and Dominic Sue kind of pretty much shoved him to the ground at one point, and it was a bit of a spat between Rodgers and Sue, who I don't think anybody's a Sue fan at this stage either. But yeah, Rodgers just was missing balls. His receivers weren't helping. His tight end went over his ankle as well, one of his favorite targets, and it just didn't pick up after that. But yeah, disappointing performance from Rodgers. Just couldn't get back into the game, and like Tom Brady didn't have to do much. The defense won this one really for the Bucs.
Yeah, and look, Ndamukong Suh renewing hostilities with Aaron Rodgers, bearing in mind his time back in Detroit and the Detroit Lions, and multiple suspensions as well. Sorry, Brian?
No, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. What I was going to say there was, I think a lot of that was down to the previous years where they would have went against each other in that division twice a year, and there was always kind of no love lost, shall we say, for those two. But I just felt it went on a bit too much throughout the game.
Yeah. And actually, I mean, there has been a lot of talk beforehand. The Buccaneers defense might be a really underrated unit. And like we say, well, we'll leave it when we see it. We didn't see a lot early in the season. But actually, I wanted to give a call out to another linebacker of the Bucs as well, Levante David, who was also hitting with some serious pressure and serious power. David was the infamous linebacker in his rookie year. He basically gave away a game against the Jets in the first game of the season by giving up a needless personal foul penalty, putting him into field goal range. And for many years, that's kind of haunted him. But he's rounded into a decent all-round linebacker there. And certainly it was a good all-round performance by the Bucs. Great performance by Ronald Jones on the ground as well. Really running hard. And I totally agree. Brady didn't have to do much at all. Couple of nice throws, couple of safe throws. And, 38 unanswered. Pretty damn sure there's going to be one winner there. But speaking of this and speaking of kind of unexpected blowouts a little bit, I mean, I'm going to call out here last week. I think I was the only one of the three of us to pick the Bucs. So props to me on that. However, I was the only one of the three of us, albeit with my nose pinched and not feeling very clean about it at all, that picked the Browns. So from the heights of heaven to the depths of hell very quickly, because the Browns, my God, they were hellish this weekend.
Yeah, it was one of those games. Again, it's kind of, are the Steelers just really, really good, or is Baker Mayfield just really, really shit at the moment? It's kind of, it's twofold. He let them down with the Brown side of things. Obviously, as a Steelers fan, I was thoroughly enjoying this game. This is the one I had on, and I was watching this one in full. The defense, again, for the Steelers just had a field day. 4 sacks, Bud Dupree with 2 big ones. Rushing, mostly rushing touchdowns. I think it was 4 touchdowns, and 3 of them were rushing from the Steelers. And Big Ben, again, he was hitting throws, didn't do anything spectacular, got pulled out of the game late to save him because there was no need to play him anymore. But obviously the big talking point was Mayfield. And Mayfield getting benched late in the third quarter for Case Keenum. And Kevin Stefanski coming out very quickly afterwards saying that they benched him because, they were trying to make sure he wasn't going to get hit in this game, and he was getting hit too much, not because of the performance, and that he is still going to be there for the next week. And I think he has to stay as the starter. But I think if you look at all of the press clippings and the shows online since this game, a lot of talk is Mayfield one and done? Is that another Browns quarterback that has just not hit the heights required? Because Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, they have serious offensive weapons, Kareem Hunt, but yet Mayfield just isn't performing at a level that makes sense. And Stefanski tries to game plan for him, but you can only do so much when your quarterback's letting you down. I really do think Mayfield just seems like a deer in headlights at the moment. But Steelers, just as I've said, nothing spectacular, just playing really solid football.
I think I find it a bit unfair, to be honest, on Mayfield, because prior to the game they're 4-1, and we have discussed that he hasn't been playing up to the standard that people expect. Still doing well, and the Browns are still in a much better position than they have been in years. And in fairness to teams going in to Heinz Field, the majority of the quarterbacks going into against the Steelers defense are going to struggle, or certainly not are in a game. So I think I wouldn't be throwing them under the bus just yet. They need to obviously react to that defeat, and they've got the Bengals this week, so it'll be interesting to see how he plays this weekend.
Yeah, you'd expect them to bounce back. I mean, I heard the line from a Browns fan before that game was, delighted they were 4-1, but kind of worrying, am I supposed to think, oh, we're 4-1 and our quarterback hasn't played great yet, and so he can only get better? Or am I to think we're 4-1 and Christ, he's playing appallingly and that's not a good sign for the future? He was like, do we go optimistic or pessimistic? And look, they played 2 quality teams in the Ravens and the Steelers, and they've been blown out both times, and they're divisional rivals, which isn't great. But I'm kind of like you, Brian. I think we could be got to be egalitarian in this and kind of balance up they're probably not one of the great teams, but they're still a good team, and we'll see how Mayfield responds for the rest of the season. He's not the worst incumbent quarterback, Kirk Cousins. I'm looking at you. Certainly playing.
No, and I think one other point to make about the Steelers, which I think is really interesting that someone pointed out, is the receiving core. Again, if you look at the receptions from the weekend, Juju Smith-Schuster had a quiet game again, but it's interesting in terms of the age demographic in that receiving core. I think Juju is like the oldest at like 26 or something like that. And again, it's just back to that point we've talked about the Steelers when it comes to receivers and drafting well. Chase Claypool had another big, massive game, and he's proving to to be a phenomenal rookie wide receiver. But yeah, I just think they've got some serious weapons, and they're spreading the love at the moment in Steelers.
Yeah, and look, great call out on that. Great defense as well. TJ Watt really anchoring it, and they're getting great performances across all three lines of that defense. Certainly, that last season first round pick for Fitzpatrick is looking like a good bit of business, and how he shored up the secondary as well, it must be said. But like I said, gents, it's not just about the games that were a bit one-sided and not that entertaining. There were some damn entertaining games, and I'm just going to tell you, guys, 78 points. 78 points. I just want to be clear on this figure. This is not the amount of points the Jets are going to score for the rest of the season. This was the amount of points we saw in one absolute ding-dong game this weekend. Again, I make the joke, but it feels like the Texans versus Titans is a game destined for Thursday night football at least once every year and possibly twice. And if you could put it on even later in the evening, not too many people would be upset. But the Titans, some way, somehow, have gone to 5-0, and the Texans are 1-5. And frankly, this was the most fun game of the weekend. When you get 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and then a touchdown, obviously, in overtime to close it off, last-minute drives, great performances, great toing and throwing. Defense might have been a bit missing. I could go on and on about this game. Tannehill stepped up to the mark. Deshaun Watson's trying to carry those Texans as much as he can. But the man of the day, the man of the hour, the man of the week, Derrick Henry.
King Henry, Mark.
King Henry. Henry Shefflin might argue with that one now, Gordo. But Derrick King Henry, 212 yards, one of only 6 performances since 2018 for a 200-yard rushing game. He's got 3 of them. And not only that, when it gets to overtime, the Titans need to go the length of the field to score. Well, Texans will overcommit and let's stop the rushing game. That's fine. Henry will take a wheel route, 53 yards, and instantly change the dynamic of the game. Just an unbelievable performance.
And for a long time, you would never have seen the second half that came with that game, because at halftime it was 21-10, and the Titans looked reasonably comfortable. But in fairness to the Texans, that offense is explosive when they play well. But again, as well as the game is, I still can't understand some decisions. And I know Cornell is only temporary head coach, but you're up by a point. You score a touchdown, so you effectively could be going up by 8 points, and then having the Titans having to drive down and score a touchdown, and then a 2-point conversion. But instead, the Texans went for 2. I just don't get it. They wanted to put the game away, but surely you're better off just allowing your defense, because the defense had done some good things in the game with few and far between, but there was a situation where they did get to Tannehill, they did cause a strip and a fumble, and they recovered. Just give your defense a chance to win the game for you.
In fairness, I'm going to say 2 things there, because you are right on the defense. In that second half, the only score they've given up up to that point had been Derrick Henry's 94-yard run, which he just put in the memory bank along his 99-yard run there a couple of years ago as well. But I don't know. I'll defend Cornell's decision. Again, for anybody who didn't see the game detail, minute 50 to go left in the game. They've gone up by 7, as Brian's alluded to. They didn't kick the extra point. They went for a 2-point conversion. If you get the 2-point conversion, this is what Romeo said afterwards. If we get the 2-point conversion, we're up by 9. It's a 2-score game. We've basically got it won. And of course, if they don't get it, it's more likely the team will kick the extra point rather than risk 2. Obviously, Riverboat Run in the Giants game went a slightly different direction at the end of that game. I don't mind it as much as you do. I actually concede the defensibility of that one in terms of trying to get the game away. And yeah, Romeo doesn't care. He's kind of interim gig. He's unlikely to get the long-term gig probably. So
the one thing I would say, sorry, Gordon, one point. Okay, the Riverboat Run situation is quite different because the Redskins, Washington aren't going anywhere in the long run of the season. Albeit they only won 1 game, the Texans do have the players to potentially get back in with a chance of at least a wild card, and winning that game in the division would be used to that, because you'd have a tiebreak immediately. But
it's back to what we discussed previously that both you kind of shrugged off, is the stats side of things. It's these old school coaches being influenced by the stats of 4th down and going for it, and that's what everyone's talking about since it. If it was old school football, yes, they should have kicked the points and moved on. But everyone is being convinced now that on fourth down in those sort of positions, you should go for it for exactly that reason that Mark kind of pointed through. But I think on the Derrick Henry side, phenomenal again. Completely off topic, but in my fantasy league, I won by 36 points, and thankfully Henry got me 40 of those. So Henry's the only reason I won this week's fantasy football. So King Henry is long live the king. But and I think the big question now is, who's your MVP? Is it Ryan Tannehill? Is it Derrick Henry? Because both are playing phenomenally well. And I think the one thing I loved was that touchdown to AJ Brown to put it to overtime in the final play. That was some pass and an amazing catch in the corner of the end zone. But yeah, look, Tennessee Titans coming off a rough 2 weeks and performing really well, you know.
Yeah, this is Derrick Henry's team, full stop. Like Tannehill's a nice complementary piece, and he's settled in well and certainly performed well the other day. But this is Derrick Henry's team. On his shoulders they will run. Speaking of which, it's actually, Brian makes a great point about this game looked out of sight, actually, because the Titans were up 14-0. There were a lot of games this weekend that if you looked after the first quarter, you thought you knew the story of the game already, but it turned very different. I'm thinking, of course, the Colts game. The Colts 14-0 down to the Bengals, and Old Man Rivers managed to hold back the river and get back into the game and just about win that one.
It actually got to 21-0.
A good point, Brian. Yes, it was 21.
Yeah. And I was looking at it going, I was thinking, oh my God, the Colts, in a game that everybody would have thought, they'd win. Not say comfortably, but certainly put out a win. But in fairness, we've been giving Rivers, and most people have been giving Rivers a terrible time. And at 21-0 down, you don't see any but the Bengals finishing the game off. So we've got to give him a little bit of credit this week. 3 touchdowns, 3 really good throws. One of them, he was even on the move. And fair play, they turned it around. It was a great win for them.
I'd like to think that we're the reason for Rivers' performance this week. I think the tough love that we've shown Old Man Rivers has paid off. And look, fair play to him. He's come back. He's made a performance. It just shows you a bit of tough love goes a long way. So we'll see how he gets on next week. I thought Joe Burrows was going to do it with the Bengals, but yeah, look, good performance by Rivers.
And look, it wasn't just the Colts that were down 14-0 at halftime, for 14-0 after the first quarter. In another game, it was 14-0 after the first quarter, 17-0 ultimately pushed out to, was the Ravens versus the Eagles. And if you could have told me, I think even 3 minutes left in the third quarter that this game was going to be as tight at the end, I wouldn't have believed you. And I would have, asked you what you were smoking, to be frank. But exciting finish. And, Carson Wentz and the Eagles, they've been competitive in many games now in the last 3 weeks against some really quality opposition. They nearly pulled out, awful start, but came back strong.
They've done that the past 2 weeks. Last week in Pittsburgh, they came back really well, but just couldn't get it done. And similar enough again, they came back in the fourth quarter and got it within a 2-point conversion of tying up the game. Do you know how many yards Wentz threw for in the first half? I think
it was ridiculously low, wasn't it? I remember seeing it was single digits.
2 yards. 2 yards in the entire first half. I mean, how is that possible?
Like, it has to be the end of an era nearly there. Like, even at the end, that fumble or whatever, that they were trying to do the RPO with the running back, and they basically just hugged each other and didn't separate with the ball. It was pathetic. Like, you don't see that in pro football.
You think Wentz is on his way out?
Oh, he has.
No.
Playing
great. He's playing well.
No, I think he makes. But he makes mistakes when you don't need your big quarterback to make mistakes. Like, that was a terrible decision at the end.
Although the only mistake he's made a couple of mistakes, but the major mistake I think he's made is that clearly somewhere he's slept with the wives and sisters of every single member of his offensive line, because they are trying actively to get him killed by the defenses in this game. It was like he was running for his life constantly.
They're down, in fairness, they're down three of their starters every week, which is good news for Thursday night. Giants Eagles Thursday night. So hopefully he has it. Gordon, I'd be happy if he does that kind of stuff on Thursday night. I'm delighted. And then we'd happily pack him off.
Like, he had 21 out of 40 completions. Like, it's not like his averages are still not good. Like,
but Gordo, it's very difficult to complete a pass when you're running backwards, throwing off the back foot, trying to escape 300-pound men who are trying to crush your bones into the ground. I honestly, I haven't seen enough of the Eagles games. I watched the vast majority of the second half of that game, play by play, and I just could not get over how much he was struggling behind that O-line in terms of just getting decent protection, even for the simplest of pass plays.
Well,
he doesn't have much weaponry at the moment either, with the injuries they've got in the wide receiver core, except for Fulgham, again, another talented rookie.
I will say, like, being sacked 6 times is going to make your passing attempts tough, and I agree with that. But I do think I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jalen Hurts at some point this season. I'm saying it. I'm just calling it. I'm just calling it now.
I suppose it depends. It depends on the nature of the season, where they are, because with the way the Cowboys have gone last night in terms of the defeat they got at home to the Cardinals, and the division as it is being so poor, the likelihood is the Eagles will probably win the division. So I guess depends how it plays out from here.
Yeah, I won't say we won't see Jalen Hurts, because I certainly didn't expect to see a Tim Boyle versus Blaine Gabbert shootout in the Bucks Packers game. So, stranger things have happened. But give Wentz some love. Actually, I'll also give their defense some love. They came back after they've been pretty abject most of the season so far. And after a tough first half against the Ravens, they really stepped up as a team. Didn't quite get it over the line. There are a few teams that didn't get over the line, as I alluded to. My Patriots lost in a pretty abject performance, it must be said, to 6 field goals from the Denver Broncos. Cam and the Pats had the ball with the last drive, and a touchdown would have won it. But kind of a very, very poor and average performance by the Patriots, and even trickery with Julian Edelman throwing a couple of passes couldn't get us down sufficiently to make the comeback there. Drew Lock donated a couple.
Well, Drew Lock is back, and it's a hell of a difference when you see him playing for that Broncos team.
He's back, Brian, but he nearly gave away the game at the end.
He did because he's still a young player trying to make big plays. But in fairness to him, he had some good drives, albeit there's a few interceptions in there, which gave him good field position. And I mean, if they had taken any touchdowns off those 6 field goals, the score wouldn't have been as close as it was. I think it was a lot more comfortable than the game looked.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And look, in terms of comfortable games, the Lions, handled the Jags quite comfortably in a rather meaningless game. Equally, in the story, the disappointment of the season, the Falcons beating the Vikings 40-23. Our Bears, I say the Bears, the one and only Da Bears.
Noel's Bears.
Noel's Bears, now 5-1. And again, didn't really look in trouble. It got a bit tight at one point against the Panthers, but you actually felt, first time I watched the Bears game in a long time, I actually felt like, no, they're going to pull this off. Like the Bears are the better team here, and they should win.
Yeah, I picked the Bears last week. I was confident. I think the Matt Rule kind of, that's I suppose the upward curve that they've been going on, I just didn't feel it would keep going. And the Bears, they're 5-1, and no one's really talking about them. And it's all about the Packers, and maybe to a certain extent the Vikings being so poor this season. But they're going about their business quietly, and there's they're coming up against the Packers in a couple of weeks. That'll be their real game now.
The Bears defense again had a great game with 4 sacks. The Bears defense is really pulling them forward.
Yeah. And then to sum up the other games very quickly, guys, I'd describe it as the trampoline week, very much. There were lots of teams, if you like, bouncing back. So we had the San Francisco 49ers bouncing back and beating the Rams in a very contentious game, a very important game for them divisionally to stay in contention there, 16-24. You had the Kansas City Chiefs bouncing back from a rare loss to hand the Bills their second loss in a row in a really, ground dominated late Sunday night game there. You had the Arizona Cardinals bouncing back to really whoop the sorry Cowboys ass, to be frank, 38-10. There's no other way of saying it. Zeke Elliott fumbling twice in 2 drives, and the Cowboys offense, the question last week was, could they still be efficient with the Red Rocket instead of Dak Prescott? After 1 week, the answer is no, they can't. And the last bounce back, the New York Jets, of course, bouncing back to complete and utter mediocrity and uselessness in scoring 0 points against the Miami Dolphins. Miami win it 24-0. Game was over after about 3 minutes, it felt.
And Mark, you're not going to give a bit of kudos to Mr. Irrelevant, no?
Who's Mr. Irrelevant? Other than
the last pick in the NFL draft last year, Mr. Irrelevant. Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder returned a touchdown for the Giants against the Redskins.
Well, we did already talk about the Giants bounce back, and Brian, I fear that you don't get to enjoy this another. So next 30 seconds, Brian, just you to talk about the Giants. You can just savor in their bask in their glory if you like. But
I'll be brutally honest with you, Mark. I was relieved to see Riverboat Ron go for 2 points because I felt if the game had went to overtime, the Giants' defense was on the field for 13 minutes of the fourth quarter. They were gassed. So I actually think it played into our hands. Basically, it was one play to win a game rather than having to go through overtime, which I just don't think they would have won the game. So I was relieved to see him go for 2 points. Maybe it was to put me on my misery if they had lost. But no, thankfully they won, and then we're going to Philadelphia Thursday, win on Thursday, top of the division.
Philadelphia are going to be a different proposition, Brian, but I applaud the eternal optimism that springs in your unbridled and unchallenged mind there. That, hope springs eternal, my friend. Hope springs eternal. Actually, before we move on to next week, two things are actually from the Cards and Cowboys game I wanted to share in terms of stats. Andy Dalton threw the ball 54 times. Now, I don't claim to be an NFL expert, but I can guarantee you one thing. Andy Dalton throwing the ball 54 times means you've lost the game, full stop. I don't think there's any question about that. And actually for anybody, and obviously I was very high on the Cards at the start of the season and still am very kind of passionate about them being underrated. They need, however, to fix Kyler Murray in the passing game. They didn't win this game with Kyler Murray still passing well, 9 for 24. They won it with 261 yards on the ground. Kenyon Drake having a great day. Murray running where appropriate to do so and picking up some nice yardage. But that is a red warning light for the Cards when they get against decent opposition.
It's a massive one. It's one that we've mentioned a few times. We think on the running game, he's brilliant. Even DeAndre Hopkins only had 2 receptions for 73 yards. So, yeah, he's making up a lot of the yardage for Kyler Murray. But, yeah, Kenyon Drake, 20 carries, 164 yards and 2 touchdowns. Phenomenal performance.
Near Henry-esque, you might say. Near Henry-esque.
Okay. Anyway, on we go.
I have no idea what's going on there.
This is what happens when you have tech issues with Zoom online. But look, we do everything one shot, one take wonders on the Irish NFL podcast. We don't work off a script. Mark is back though. Mark is back.
Just as well it wasn't anything else that was being played. Anyway, we move on.
Home videos, Brian. Home videos. Anyway, we started talking about next week already, and we should always turn our attention to the past is gone. Let's look to the future and look to, let's just say, Brian's hope. So Thursday night, I don't have to ask Brian. We know who you're going for. You've already told us. But Gordo, Giants versus Eagles. Can lightning strike twice?
I think the line for this one is -3.5. I think for the Eagles.
Yeah.
So again, I've said it, I'm not a big fan of Wentz. I think, as we said, the offensive line for the Eagles is struggling. They've got a left tackle that's a former Australian rugby player. They've just got people in positions that just not working. And the Giants, I can't be high on them in the offseason and then just because of a few injuries completely go off them. So I'm going to give Brian something to celebrate. I'm going to go with the Giants to win and cover the +3.5.
The line started as -6.5, and it came down to 3.5 because Sanders, the running back, and Zach Ertz are both ruled out. So it's changed. It's dropped. No, I'm going to go back to reality now. The Giants are not going to win that game on Thursday. It was funny for a few hours. No, the Eagles will win.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm there as well. I actually think the way the Giants can win it is with their defense. To be frank, I mean, Eagles are missing enough weapons. We've already talked about how the O-line despises Carson Wentz and wants to see him killed. And the Giants have had one of the top-ranking defenses in the NFL this season, who have been performing. So there is a way for them to win, but I think the Eagles are going to have too much. I've said before, I think they are now the odds-on favorites for that division. And if they're going to realize that, they've got to win this game. They've played too well against good opposition. They should not drop their quality at this point in time. We then move on, and obviously some games we'll still see and how it all transpires with COVID and the like, and some games obviously don't even have lines applied. Next week's game's, of course, an hour earlier for us in Europe with standard time coming into effect, so they'll start at 5 o'clock. And the first game, Bills versus Jets. I don't think there's going to be great mystery about who we think will win this game necessarily, but there might be the mystery about what the line is actually going to be by the time it's actually fully set.
Yeah, as in how do the bookmakers put a line on this when Miami sticks up 24 points on them? So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Bills for this one, and I'm gonna take whatever line comes in play, and I think I'll add a few points onto that as well, and this might be a nice little bet.
I guess that the Bills will start probably minus 13.5. The way it's going for the Jets, it's just so bad at the moment. But yeah, look, I don't think we need to spend too much time. The Bills will win. It's just a case of how much they win by.
Jets haven't covered the spread even in any game thus far this season. So, yeah, Bills all the way, plus whatever points you like, plus Josh Allen to throw 400 yards, plus. It's be a massive surprise if it's otherwise. Much more entertaining game, albeit the surprising development under Matt Rule with the Carolina Panthers. They're going to the New Orleans Saints. We're on a bye last week, or this week just gone. And indeed have been up and down in their performance. Hopefully getting Michael Thomas back from injury, though, will transform their offense. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, I think this is actually maybe one of the better games of the weekends. Saints are coming off their bye. They've needed it because they haven't been playing well. Obviously, Thomas was out because of other reasons at the last game. But the Panthers are doing well on the road, albeit I thought the Bears would have enough last week. I think the Saints will do enough to win. I think it'll be another one of those games where they'll just pull out the win. But I don't think they'll cover the spread. 7.5 points. I think the Panthers will keep it within the 7.5. But I think the Saints will just win it closely at the end.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a close game as well. I don't think they'll cover the spread, as Brian said. I think the Saints will win it. I think the overs in this game could be a really good bet. It's 51 points overs. And this is, definitely one of those ones we've seen it from both teams, putting up high points on offense. So I think this could be a really high-scoring game.
I think Bridgewater will have a point to prove as well going back in. I know he's a backup there. But now the starter in Carolina, he might want to, turn the tables.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking Breeze might have a point to play as well, with everybody writing him off in many respects, including ourselves, and criticizing some of the play this season. I'm going to go with the Saints with the points to cover comfortably. Next game, however, Gordo, we allude to this, the Browns bounce back potential. Browns versus Bengals. Browns currently tracking at -3 going into Cincinnati. What are your thoughts on this one?
I'm a little bit unsure of this one because of everything with Mayfield and the rumors he's injured. He's got a rib injury, and that's part of the reason they took him out. And the Bengals performing quite well at the moment. So I'm actually going to go with the Bengals for this game. I do think it'll be fairly close, though. So I'm going to go with the Bengals to win and cover the point spread.
Bengals to win, eh? Okay. They've already played each other, actually. They played each other on Thursday night already this season, and it was quite a good game, and the Bengals lost, but they did cover that night. And but I do think the Browns will win. I think that particular night, the Browns put up a lot of points, and their offense, in particular, in terms of their running game, was really good against the Bengals. I think the Browns will run all over the Bengals this week, and -3 is quite low for me. I think the Browns will win and cover.
Yeah, I'm not with the Browns -3 as well. I'm reasonably confident in relation to them. I think Nick Chubb will still be out injured at the moment, however, but hopefully he'll be able to return in short course and develop their running game further. Next game on the schedule, guys, Cowboys versus the Washington football team.
Yeah, no line as yet because the Cowboys played last night, so I suppose they're still evaluating who got injured and who didn't. And then we don't know who's playing quarterback for the Redskins, like you joked about the other day, Marcus, case of toss of a coin or a spin of a cup. But I don't know. I actually wouldn't be that confident on the Cowboys at the moment. Dalton, after looking at him last night, didn't look great. I'm going to go with Washington to cause an upset.
Oh, that's a big one. That's a big one. I honestly think and again, I've only watched the highlights of the game from the Cowboys game, haven't had a chance to watch it properly. Like, I think Dalton, obviously we said he's thrown too much, but Ezekiel Elliott had 2 fumbles that you normally wouldn't see out of him. I think he's going to have a massive, massive game. And similarly again with Amari Cooper next week against Washington. I'm not sure if the Washington linebacker forgotten his name, is back at the moment, but I'm going to go with Dallas Cowboys for this one to win and cover.
I'd say the spread will probably start. I'd say the spread will start about 6.5. I'd say the Redskins will get a touchdown on the line.
Yeah, like it's so hard. I actually kind of making new betting rules this year. I used to say never bet on the Cowboys because they'll always surprise you one way or the other. Vikings have been added to that do not touch list this year. And actually, I just think just bet against the NFC least in any other game outside of their division. I think they're now up to 2-15-1 in terms of that record. We'll keep a track on that during the season, see how bad mediocrity can become. But it's these intra-divisional games that therefore become harder to predict. And I don't like either team, but I'm actually favoring with Brian here. I actually probably favor the Washington team to win outright. If you give me the points, I'll take them, but I fancy them more in this game. So, yeah, I'm going Washington as well, actually. Dallas on a short week and just in free fall, to be frank, in many ways. So, Riverboat Ron needs another win, I think. So, with whichever quarterback he decides to spin the bottle towards, we'll see. Two teams, we're talking about objectivity and kind of abject failures this season. Dallas, obviously, and a lot in the NFC East have let us down. But if you're a fan of the Atlanta Falcons or you're a fan of the Detroit Lions, pain never seems too far away, certainly in the last few seasons. Ever since that Super Bowl loss, obviously the Falcons have been suffering and the Detroit Lions have been suffering, it seems, since time immemorial. This is a matchup of two very disappointing teams. The line at the moment, the Falcons coming off their first win, handling the Vikings quite comfortably, or at least catching the gifts that Kirk Cousins threw to them quite comfortably, tracking at -3 on this one. Brian, how do you see it going?
Well, we say we're disappointed with the Lions, but in fairness to them, they're 2-3. It's not a bad record, and they could have won a few games. They should have won that Bears game. I don't think they're as bad as people think. I was quite confident on them last week, and they're getting points. I'm a little bit surprised by that. No, I'm going to take the Lions with the points. I think the Lions will win the game.
To be honest, again, last week when it came to picking the lines correctly, it was because I just flipped the coin. I'm kind of going to do something similar for this game because I've liked the Falcons on offense, on defense, they've sucked, and then on the Detroit Lions, they pull out a performance here or there. I'm just going to go with the Falcons just because of how good they've been on offense, and I think with Dan Quinn gone, etc., and the first win, I think Matt Ryan will prove it again, especially with all the talk saying it might be time to get rid of him in Atlanta.
One more, Mark. Sorry. When everybody thought the Lions were goose, they went in and won in Arizona, which is now feet. Judging by how well the Cardinals are playing, and that's why I think they're a better rounded team at the moment than the Falcons, and they'll win the game. That's my pick.
Yeah, I feel I don't want to. One swallow doesn't make a summer, so I don't really want to go. Say the Falcons have fixed issues on defense just because they managed to handle Kirk Cousins. I think that's I don't know. There's so many bad examples I could give them. Probably most of them not safe for work. But there was definitely a marked improvement last week on defense. Offense, they've been quality the whole way through. So I'm going Falcons. Maybe it's the start of their bounce back a little bit more. It depends which team turns up on the day. I totally get your points, Brian. Actually, I don't disagree with your points that the Lions aren't as bad possibly as they're maybe being perceived. Patricia's still gone, don't get me wrong, but they're not as bad. The Falcons, I actually put in the same category. Yes, they had the bad blowouts. Yes, they had a terrible record already, but I think there's some more quality there that will come to the fore. Speaking of not bad as the people might seem, the 1-5 Houston Texans are at home now to the 5-1 and angry Green Bay Packers. The line at the moment is scarcely believable to me, to be really frank, guys. -3.5 for the Pack. And to me, I'll go first. Is this is a revenge game. This is bounce back territory. Packers are going to walk this game.
I said it last week when the line was -2.5 for the Packers against the Bucs that it was just too enticing to not take it. -3.5 against the Houston Texans, who, as we've seen, are on a landslide down. I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers to have an absolute stormer. And I think you'll see a lot of connections made that he missed at the weekend.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of that. It's full house. Yeah, I think the Packers will have a huge bounce back game. And yeah, 3.5.
Yeah,
it's very low. I would have thought it'd be a little bit higher. Certainly want to be getting involved in, in terms of betting. Packers all the way here.
Absolutely. And sorry, they're 4-1. I'm just projecting forward to next week's pod when they'll be 5-1. The Steelers, however, this is my game of the week in terms of intrigue, debate for the playoffs, and indeed how their respective seasons are going to go. The unbeaten Pittsburgh Steelers to go and play the unbeaten Tennessee Titans. The line is -2 for the Steelers. Gents, strength against strength. Who's going to out in this battle of wills?
This is just going to be this is going to be a great game to watch. I'm torn. I think with the way Tennessee have been doing, I know they came back and they had a performance at the weekend, but I do think everything that's happening with COVID, etc., has definitely played a part, because they should have probably won that a bit cleaner at the weekend. I'm going to stick with the Steelers. I'm going to stick with Steelers to go 6-0, to have a strong performance. I think they will cover the -2, obviously, but I think it'll be a very tight game and a low-scoring game.
This is actually one of the games that was originally called off. Should have been played earlier in the season. And as it happens now, it's turned into a really enticing game because obviously the both were still unbeaten. So the Titans have beaten the Bills at home, they've beaten the Texans at home, and I expect them to be winning again this weekend and making it 3 wins in a row at home. I'm going for the Titans to take with the points.
Yeah, for me, it's a tricky one because I feel like the Steelers have been far more the convincing unbeaten team in terms of, performance and scale and margin of victory and the like. Titans, they scraped by last weekend, but I just think they've got a little bit of magic going on. Now, it could be Vince Young type magic. You remember the season they went 14-2 and then promptly blew up in the top seed in the AFC, blew up in the playoffs in their first playoff game. A team that's, I suppose, never really got any benefit really since the Steve McNair in their days in terms of the playoffs, other than last year's great run. I'm on the King Henry freight train, though, and I'm going to go with the Titans as well in this game, because actually I think the only thing that the Steelers haven't properly faced is a really comprehensive running game to perhaps manage them and manage their defense and ball control. So I'm with the Brian on the Titans.
Just very early in the season, and we keep, everybody keeps raving about the Ravens and the Chiefs being the main guys in the AFC. Whoever wins this game is right now the number 1 seed. And bearing in mind that there is only one team getting a bye come playoffs this year because of the extra team, the number 2 seed will be playing. Oh, it's still very early in the season, but whoever wins has a great chance to be at least in the contention for that pick, for that number 1 seed. Then. Yep, you're not agreeing with me, Mark, no?
No, I do. I think it's a great point. I'm just thinking, I was mentioning the Steelers at the start of the season as being
you looked a bit shell shocked there,
You caught him deep in thought as he was he was taking in what you were saying, Brian.
No, I think he was shocked because then he realised that the Pages won't be 1 seed or 2 seed.
Yeah, no, I was agreeing because Steelers I'd called at the start of the year I thought could be great. I mean, I'm just kind of musing more on the fact that we actually, and I remember our season preview, we were running down the AFC South and kind of going, who knows, like get a dartboard. You can make a case arguably for anyone other than the Jags, and even the Jags have surprised from time to time. And now a few weeks into the season, we're definitely seeing the separation, and the Titans are appearing like the quality act in that particular division. And you're right, like if somebody wins this, the Chiefs have already lost the game. They're in the pole seats to hopefully claim that first round bye. So, yeah, things have playoff implications even this early in the season. So, great game we're looking forward to. I wasn't that shocked. Another game with potential playoff implications, because talk about divisional races, still fascinating for me is the NFC West. Worst team in the division, just lost the Super Bowl last year, and they're only 3-3. They're only at 500. God, there are teams in the NFC East that would, kill you for 500 record. And this game of the weekend, the Seahawks at the Cards. Guys, there's actually a lot resting on this. The Seahawks are probably a lucky unbeaten team in many ways, and the Cards now 4-2 after the Cowboys win. How do you see this one going now, Brian?
Well, this is actually the one I'm looking forward to the most. I know you touched on the one being the Titans Steelers being the game of the weekend, but I see this one actually is the game of the weekend. Cardinals at home to Seattle. I still think that the Cardinals, when it comes to these big games, will just be a little bit short. And I think the Seahawks, and I actually think this could be one for the overs. Gordon, it hasn't been put up yet, obviously, because the Cardinals only played last night, but certainly think this could be one with a high scoring game. But I'm picking the Seahawks.
Yeah, I'm keeping this one fairly simple. I'm going to go with the Seahawks for this one. I think we've mentioned all the issues so far to date for the Cardinals. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks to cover whatever the handicap is, because I think they'll have a strong performance.
I feel like Brian's comment that the Cardinals might be a little bit short is meant as a direct attack at Kyler Murray and, making short man jokes. Brian, it's not becoming. It's not becoming, Brian. But I'm gonna be contrarian on this one. I do think the Seahawks are kind of due a drop in the game. I think they probably should have dropped one already. Wilson is playing lights out, don't get me wrong. But if Wilson doesn't get to take the field and the Cardinals run the ball like they did against the Cowboys, then that's the way to control. And I'm not sure the Seahawks defense could manage a run-controlled offense by the Cardinals. So, yeah, it's a bit of an underdog play, I grant you, but I'll go with the Cardinals to spring the surprise in this one. What isn't a surprise is that the LA Chargers are playing in empty stadiums. That's nothing to do with COVID. They'd be playing in empty stadiums even if fans were allowed. But they are playing this weekend allegedly at home to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Gordo, how do you see this one going down?
Well, I think the Minshew magic, etc., is long gone at this stage, and I think Herbert is the new heir apparent in Los Angeles. I'm going to go with the Chargers for this one at -7, and I just think the Jags are just on a poor run of form at the moment. So I'm going to go with the Chargers for a win here.
Yeah, the Jags are a strange bunch because every time you think they're gone, they put out good results and put out good performances. But I don't see it this weekend. I think the Chargers will win comfortably. I think Herbert will have another good game.
I'm not sure about comfortably, but the Chargers have more than enough. 7 seems high for me, but I'm always worried about Minshew backdooring into a cover in the last 3 minutes of a game or something like that. So that's a bit rich, but yeah, I'll go Chargers to win and take it with the spread. The next game, if time was different, this would be the game of the weekend. You go back a couple of years, for example, these would have been the two class acts in the AFC West, the Chiefs and the Broncos. But time moves on and things evolve, and we're not talking about the present and the future because I'm not as high on Drew Lock as Brian is. We're talking about the class act in the division and probably one of the bottom dwellers when it comes to the Chiefs versus the Broncos. Broncos win against the Pats this weekend, notwithstanding. Chiefs definitely bounced back, guys. I'm going to go Chiefs. The line isn't set yet, but I'm going to go Chiefs. Set it wherever you like. They'll win this game comfortably.
Yeah, and which of the last few games that the Chiefs have had have been, difficult games. One they've lost, one they won last night, but they're not blowing teams away. But I certainly think they will in this game. I agree with you, Mark. I think Chiefs will win very comfortably. I think it's one of the games that, they won't be. By the third quarter, it'll be well in command.
Yeah, I think what the Chiefs are proving at the moment is that they don't have to rely solely on Mahomes to win them every single quarter of every single game at the moment. And I think they're going to come back after last week as well and really put up performance against the Broncos. So I think, high scoring game. Be interesting to see what the handicap is set at.
So sorry, Gordo, who you're going for? You're going for Chiefs as well?
Oh, yeah, going to go for Chiefs for this one.
All right, cool. So the next game, guys, the last game before the late night game on Sunday. This is a clear storyline. This is, Master versus the Apprentice. The Apprentice coming back to haunt the Master. And oh wait, no, that would have been the storyline if Tom Brady hadn't gone to Tampa Bay. Now it's one contender in the San Francisco 49ers coming to visit. They're less than 500 for the first time since 2002. So I have to call my New England Patriots a pretender at this moment in time. Jimmy GQ and the 49ers bouncing back after their great win against the Rams, coming over to Gillette Stadium. The line, I don't know why this is the line, guys. I'll be really honest, is the Pats -2.5. And I tend never to bet against my own team, but money is money. And I don't really see a world in which the 49ers do not win this game.
Yeah, I think this is Jimmy G, and he's going to come back and he's going to showcase why he probably should still be there, to be honest. So I'm going to go with the 49ers for this one at +2.5. I don't understand the line. It makes no sense to me at the moment either, Mark. But yeah, I'm going to go with the 49ers to win and cover easily. Oh, sorry, not easily, actually. Sorry. They're going to win and cover. I take back the easily piece.
Surprised the line is 2.5, and I'd be saying get that line, get that bet on quickly, because I think for the weekend that 2.5 will be gone, and it might even be a pick 'em game. But no, I'm in agreement. I think the 49ers showed enough last weekend in beating the Rams that it might be too early to say they turned the corner, but as I said, the majority of their results have been down to injuries more so than the fact that they're not a good team. I think they'll win. I think they'll win the game, yeah. I think they'll win that match.
Yeah. And, you know, from the gritty Massachusetts Gillette rain-soaked weather to the glitz and glamour of Vegas. And probably one of the saddest things for anybody that circled this game on the late Sunday night game was going to be Tom Brady's Buccaneers at the Las Vegas Raiders. And the glitz and glamour of Vegas would have provided a great spectacle and backdrop to this game. But instead, we still got a very intriguing game. The Bucs are actually favored, even though they're away, -2.5 in this regard. And I wonder if we've seen a bit of shaving on points as well, based on the lack of impact of home fans. Actually, it's an interesting one for us to explore another day. But you know, to me, you know, the Raiders have been a bit Jekyll and Hyde. But if the Bucs perform like they did against the Packers, then there's a no-brainer. But you know, both teams have playoff aspirations, and to be fair, after dropping the Bears game, the Bucs need this game. They need to build up a bit of momentum. So I'm going to go with the Bucs to continue, but I can definitely see the Raiders doing more than enough to win this game. Again, going to be a great late night Sunday game.
I think this one for me is going to come down to the Bucs defense getting to Derek Carr. If they get to Derek Carr like they got to Aaron Rodgers, I'm with you. I think the Bucs win this game, and I think they continue on the winning streak. But I do think the Raiders have the possibility of, you know, really giving it to them. I think again could be a high scoring game, but I'm gonna just bank on the Bucs defense to perform again and cover the line.
Raiders coming off a bye week, coming off a win against the Chiefs, played really well in the game against the Saints at home, and then against the Bills at home, albeit they lost. I'm picking the Raiders. I think the Raiders can go similar enough to the Chiefs game. I think they can go back and forth with the Bucs if it becomes a high-scoring game. But as you said, it's a case of whether the Carr can avoid that pass rush. But no, I'm picking the Raiders to win the match.
No, totally understandable. I think it's going to be a really competitive, good game ahead. And then finally, I don't know. I mean, ESPN obviously pay the NFL a lot of money, a hell of a lot of money. And we talked earlier in the season about they had probably one of the better Monday night games when they had the Ravens versus the Chiefs in many a year. They've had some really good Monday night games since. We were getting bonus Monday night games like we did last night, for example. But here's a game that probably when the schedule came out, they were like, oh, God, yeah, well, we have to have one of these games on a Monday night. And we have to have the Bears in somewhere because of the Illinois television audience. But this isn't going to be a great rated game. Instead, actually, the Bears at the Rams, we're talking about two, on the records, serious NFC contenders this season. And actually what could be a very, very entertaining game. I mean, they must feel happy writing the checks at the moment, I'd say.
I'd say the game was picked because ESPN fancied the night out in the new stadium in Los Angeles when they went through the schedule. 5.5 points to the Rams. I think the Rams will bounce back after last week's poor performance against the 49ers. They'll have to, because it's a very competitive division. And the Bears have done well, but I think the Rams are offensively will be too strong. And I think Foles, can he escape the main man, Aaron Donald? I'm not sure he can. So Rams for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of on this one as well. I don't think Aaron Donald had a great performance last week or at the weekend, if I remember correctly. So I'd say he's probably going to come back. And I think the offensive line for the Bears are going to have a seriously tough night. Like every time I've bet against the Bears, they've come back and got a result. But yeah, I'm going to go with it and go with the Rams for a win on this one.
Aaron Donald has just Nick Foles sandwiches in mind this week, and I think they're probably going to keep him chained up and not feed him for a while. So he's going to be rabid on Monday night. He's going to destroy that O-line. And for me, the Bears are still a little bit, and we used this analogy the other week, a bit of a Cinderella story. I still feel like they're going to go poof at some point. The longer they can hang in there, the longer they can, obviously be real competition in the NFC North to the Packers, the more interesting it is for us as fans. But to me, the Rams are going to show them what quality looks like this weekend, and it's going to be a comfortable Rams victory. Sorry to our Bears listeners, but that's we'll see. We've been proved wrong before, as Gordo calls out. But I think the Rams will take that one quite comfortably. It does bring me, however, to how to make some money this weekend. Gordo, if you would like to take it away. We've flagged a couple of bets there, but I'm sure there's more money to be made.
Yeah, as all of our listeners are fully aware at this stage, the Irish NFL podcast has teamed up with horseracing.buddy.ie. So you can follow all of them on Twitter and Facebook, and you'll find all of Brian's bets across their social channels. So like we do every week, Brian, we're going to go through our bet of the week. Give us our banker.
Yeah, the Nap won at the weekend again. We picked the Dolphins, so the guys are happy enough with another win. I'm going with the Packers, minus 3.5 points, expecting a huge bounce back from them. I think that's a very low line. I'd even give it a day or two. I'd imagine that could even drop down to 2.5, 3 by the weekend. But to what we alluded to earlier on, the Packers will bounce back this weekend, and I can't see the Texans living with them throughout the game. Packers to cover the handicap.
And I think that's a really good bet of the week. And I think, like Trent has shown over the last few weeks, I'm assuming you're going to leave it out of your treble. So give us the treble for week 7.
The treble, the treble includes the 49ers plus 2.5. Again, don't understand that line. I would have thought the 49ers would have been favourites. The Chiefs, obviously the line isn't ready yet. I'd say that will start at about 9.5. So I put the Chiefs in. And then the last one is actually on Monday night. I'm putting the Rams in, minus 5.5. To beat the Bears. So the Rams minus 5.5, 49ers plus 2.5, and the Chiefs, which I'm assuming will be around 9.5, and that will pay out around 6-1.
Really nice treble there. So the 49ers, Chiefs, and the Rams finishing off the team bets. Player bets. This is our favorite time of the week, Brian. Give me a couple of touchdown bets.
Touchdown bets. Again, I don't get away from the two players because they keep winning me money. So Kyler Murray scored again last night. I'm putting Kyler Murray in to score against the Seahawks. Josh Allen will be in the bet again against the Jets. I mean, anybody can score against the Jets. Never mind Josh Allen. So he'll score. And I'm actually going to do a treble. I'm going to put Cam. Albeit I'm picking the 49ers. I'm going to put Cam Newton in. So 3 quarterback treble. Newton, Allen, Kyler Murray.
It's a really good bet, and yeah, as you say, don't move away, don't fix it if it ain't broken. It's been winning money for Brian week on week at the moment. As we said, this season we've teamed up with horseracing.buddy.ie, so you'll find all of Brian's bets across their social channels, and also make sure to go and look at the Irish NFL podcast on Facebook as well. We've joined that recently, and of course, give us a follow and like on Twitter too.
All right, thanks very much for that, gents. Well, look, the week 6 is formally in the books. Now we move very quickly on to 7th heaven and see what week 7 has in store for us in the NFL this time around. Lots of excitement ahead, lots of great games ahead, and who knows, maybe even the Jets might score a point one day ever again. Until then, we'll be here to take you all through it again next week. And again, in association with our sponsors, Titan Roofing, we have been the Irish NFL podcast. And from me, it's good night. From Brian.
Goodbye, thank you.
And from Gordo.
Good night.
See you all soon, guys.